For decades, Hollywood has sold us a dream. Glittering lights, flawless faces, and perfect stories. But beneath that silver screen fantasy lies a truth far more complicated. Some of the biggest names in entertainment, movie legends, chart-topping singers, and beloved TV stars, spent their entire lives hiding who they really were. They were black, yet forced to conceal their heritage just to be accepted in an industry built on illusion and prejudice. Behind every red carpet smile was a mask, one crafted for survival, not stardom. They changed their names, altered their looks, and lived in fear that the truth would destroy everything they built. But secrets don't stay buried forever. What happens when the world discovers the truth behind the faces it worships? When fame and identity collide? Get ready. The stories you're about to hear will forever change the way you see Hollywood. Before we begin, make sure to hit subscribe to Golden Legacy for more untold stories they never wanted you to know. Mariah Carey, the voice that refused to be silenced. Long before the world crowned her the Songbird Supreme, Mariah Carey was just a little girl caught between two worlds, too light to be accepted as black, too brown to be embraced as white. Born on March 27, 1969, in Huntington, New York, Mariah grew up in a home where love itself was considered rebellion. Her father, Alfred Roy Carey, an aeronautical engineer of African-Venezuelan descent, and her mother, Patricia Hickey, an Irish-American opera singer, defied the norms of the 1970s with their interracial marriage. But society didn't forgive them. Their family endured hatred so cruel that Mariah remembers rocks being hurled through their windows and hearing the haunting question, "What are you anyway?" whispered by classmates. Those wounds of rejection carved deep into her soul. While other children played carefree, Mariah learned the quiet pain of not belonging anywhere. But when her mother played piano, something magical happened. Music became her escape, her sanctuary, her identity. By her teens, she was already writing songs that carried the ache of her childhood and the hope of something greater. In 1990, fate intervened. After label head Tommy Mottola heard her demo tape, Columbia Records signed her instantly. Her debut single, Vision of Love, wasn't just a hit, it was a revelation. The song's soaring notes announced the arrival of a once-in-a-generation voice. Yet behind that angelic sound, the industry was already reshaping her image. Executives brightened her photos, straightened her curls, and sold her as a universal pop princess rather than a proud mixed-race woman. In the early 90s, when white pop still dominated radio, her identity was treated as a marketing risk. Magazines lightened her skin. PR teams advised her to stay silent about her roots. And so she did, for years. But Mariah's success became its own rebellion. Between 1990 and 2000, she racked up 19 Billboard Hot 100 #1 hits, second only to the Beatles, and shattered every barrier placed before her. Albums like Music Box and Daydream didn't just sell millions. They redefined what a superstar could look and sound like. Then, in the early 2000s, Mariah finally took back her truth. In a heartfelt interview with Oprah Winfrey, she said, "My father is a black man. That's who I am. I'm proud of that part of me." That single moment of honesty broke decades of silence, hers and the industry's. No longer hidden behind filters or photo edits, Mariah stood as herself, biracial, brilliant, and unbreakable. Today, with over 200 million records sold and a legacy that spans generations, Mariah Carey is far more than a pop icon. She is living proof that authenticity can outshine even the most polished illusions of fame, and that the most powerful voice is the one that finally speaks its truth. Dwayne Johnson. Before Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson became Hollywood's highest-paid actor, he was just a kid from Hayward, California, caught between two powerful worlds. Born on May 2nd, 1972, Dwayne Douglas Johnson carried the strength of his Samoan mother, Ada Maivia, and the pride of his black Nova Scotian father, Rocky Johnson. His father wasn't just a wrestler, he was a trailblazer, one of the first black champions in WWF history, fighting not only opponents in the ring, but racism in every arena he entered. His mother came from wrestling royalty, the daughter of the legendary Peter Maivia, making Dwayne part of a dynasty rooted in respect, heritage, and endurance. But greatness doesn't shield you from pain. Growing up in mostly white neighborhoods, Dwayne was ridiculed for his looks, his name, and his mixed heritage. He once said, "I didn't fit in anywhere, too black, too Samoan, never enough of either." His family often struggled to make ends meet, at one point losing their home in Hawaii. By 17, he'd already been arrested multiple times. Yet in those dark corners of failure, the seed of resilience began to grow. When Dwayne entered wrestling in 1996 under the name Rocky Maivia, fans rejected him outright. They booed him, calling him fake, a product of nepotism. But instead of quitting, he rewrote the script. He became The Rock. Bold, charismatic, unapologetic. He mocked himself before others could, turning ridicule into power. By the early 2000s, he was one of wrestling's biggest stars, the very definition of electrifying. Hollywood, however, wasn't ready for a leading man who looked like him. When he landed his first major role in The Scorpion King, 2001, rumors swirled that studios digitally lightened his skin on posters to appeal to European audiences. Critics doubted whether a man of color could carry a blockbuster. Dwayne answered with grace and pride. "My father is Rocky Johnson, a black man who bled to open doors for others. I'll never deny who I am." That statement echoed louder than any punchline. The film broke records, earning $36 million on opening weekend, making him the highest-paid first-time lead actor in history. From there, he built an empire, starring in Fast and Furious, Jumanji, and even producing Young Rock, a show inspired by his own life. But his success wasn't just about fame or fortune. Dwayne used his platform to honor both sides of his heritage. The Polynesian tattoos across his chest tell stories of strength, family, and faith. Every time he mentions his father's name, he reminds the world where he came from. Identity isn't a burden, he often says. It's your superpower. And that's what Dwayne Johnson's story truly is. A lesson in turning rejection into power, pain into purpose, and heritage into armor. He didn't just climb to the top of Hollywood. He carried two legacies with him and made the world cheer for both. Diana Ross, the woman who redefined stardom. In the heart of Detroit's Brewster Douglas housing projects, a young girl named Diana Ernestine Earl Ross dared to dream of glitter and spotlight in a world that told her neither belonged to girls like her. Born on March 26, 1944, Diana came of age in an America still divided by race, where the idea of a black woman ruling the pop charts seemed impossible. But her voice, soft, poised, and radiant, refused to stay hidden. By her late teens, she joined a local group that would soon evolve into the Supremes under the vision of Motown founder Berry Gordy. And by the mid-1960s, Diana Ross and the Supremes became unstoppable, scoring 12 #1 Billboard hits from Baby Love to Stop, In the Name of Love, even surpassing the Beatles' record for consecutive chart toppers. Yet behind the sparkle, the story was more complicated. Gordy molded Diana into Motown's crossover star, training her speech, her posture, even her smile, to appeal to white audiences. Her lighter complexion and refined grace made her the safe face of black music. White critics called her universal, while some within her own community whispered she was too polished to be truly soulful. Ebony magazine once described her as a woman standing between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. Tension brewed within the Supremes. Mary Wilson, her longtime bandmate, accused Motown of erasing the group's identity and turning them into Diana Ross and the Supremes. By 1970, Diana's solo departure was inevitable. To some, a bold act of ambition. To others, a betrayal born of survival. Hollywood soon came calling. In 1972, she stunned audiences as Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues. Critics doubted she could capture Billie's pain, saying she was too glamorous. But Diana silenced them all, earning an Academy Award nomination and Golden Globe win, proving that a black woman could command both the stage and the silver screen. Still, prejudice followed her. Some directors cruelly claimed she wasn't black enough for certain roles. A painful irony for a woman who'd spent her career breaking racial walls. In a rare, heartfelt 1977 interview with Barbara Walters, Ross confessed, "I'm tired of being told I'm not black enough to sing black music and not white enough to be a Hollywood star." That moment captured the anguish of generations of light-skinned and mixed-race performers torn between two identities in a world that demanded they choose. But Diana never broke. With hits like Touch Me in the Morning, Love Hangover, and Mahogany, she redefined what it meant to be a woman in control. Elegant yet powerful, vulnerable yet unshakable. Over 6 decades, Diana Ross transcended color lines, gender barriers, and cultural expectations. She wasn't just a singer. She was a visionary who turned limitations into legacy, inspiring Beyoncé, Janet Jackson, and Rihanna to embrace beauty, confidence, and truth on their own terms. Diana Ross didn't just perform music. She embodied possibility. And in doing so, she became more than a star. She became the blueprint for what it means to rise, shine, and stay magnificent against all odds. Clark Gable, the king who wore an invisible mask. In the dazzling glow of the 1930s, when America escaped its troubles through the silver screen, one man reigned supreme. Clark Gable. Suave, confident, and impossibly charming. He became the very definition of masculine perfection. Yet behind that perfect Hollywood smile lay a secret that could have ended it all. Born on February 1st, 1901, in Cadiz, Ohio, Gable's journey from poverty to fame was the stuff of legend. But whispers followed him, rumors that his family carried African American and Native American blood. In an era defined by Jim Crow segregation, such talk was enough to destroy a career. MGM, the studio that owned his image, moved swiftly to erase the story. Local birth records vanished. Publicists built a new mythology. Clark Gable, the all-American hero, rugged, white, and pure. Still, not everyone was convinced. Gossip columnist Hedda Hopper once hinted in the Los Angeles Times, "There's something not entirely American about him." In coded language, it was a warning shot, and Hollywood trembled. MGM executives tightened their control over his life, dictating not only his roles, but even who he could be seen with. Yet, Gable wasn't a man who bowed easily. On the set of Gone with the Wind in 1939, he befriended Hattie McDaniel, the trailblazing black actress who would become the first African-American to win an Oscar. When Gable discovered that segregated restrooms had been built for the cast, he tore down the colored-only sign himself, declaring, "If Hattie can't use this restroom, I won't shoot another scene." That quiet act of rebellion shocked the crew, but earned McDaniel's eternal respect. "He treated me as his equal, not as his maid," she later said. Still, prejudice ruled the day. When Gone with the Wind premiered in Atlanta, McDaniel was banned from attending. Gable was furious, refusing to go until Hattie convinced him otherwise, saying, "You have to be there for all of us." In that moment, the mask of Hollywood glamour cracked, exposing the ugliness beneath. Behind the legend was a man of contradictions. Some casting directors whispered that he wasn't white enough. Tabloids cruelly described him as a man wearing white skin. But when tragedy struck, the death of his beloved wife, Carol Lombard, in a 1942 plane crash, Gable's heartbreak turned to action. At 40, he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces, flying 5 bombing missions over Germany. Even President Franklin D. Roosevelt called him the star who carried courage into battle. Clark Gable lived as America's king of Hollywood, but one whose crown came with chains. Whether the rumors of mixed ancestry were true or not, they became part of his myth. What's undeniable is his humanity, a man who, in a segregated world, dared to show dignity and compassion. His legacy isn't just his charm or chiseled jawline. It's the quiet courage of a star who stood tall, even when the world demanded he hide behind an invisible mask. Dorothy Dandridge, the beauty Hollywood betrayed. In the 1950s, when whites' only signs still scarred America's doors, one woman dared to shine anyway. Dorothy Dandridge wasn't just beautiful. She was radiant, graceful, and defiant. Born on November 9th, 1922, in Cleveland, Ohio, Dorothy grew up chasing dreams bigger than the stage she started on. With her sister Vivian, she formed the Wonder Children, singing their way from small clubs to the glittering lights of Los Angeles. They performed at the famed Cotton Club, a place where black entertainers dazzled white audiences, yet couldn't even sit among them. Even then, Dorothy's elegance turned heads. Critics called her the Black Hedy Lamarr. It was meant as praise, but it was also a cage. Her breakout moment came in 1954 when she starred as the fiery lead in Carmen Jones, directed by Otto Preminger. That role made her the first black woman ever nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. It should have changed Hollywood forever, but it didn't. Behind the applause were closed doors. Studios adored her beauty, but feared her color. Directors ordered her makeup to be lightened. Leading roles vanished with one cruel excuse: she's too Negro. Off-screen, Dorothy's love affair with Otto Preminger became tabloid fuel. Hollywood labeled her difficult, reckless, and worse, not for her talent, but for daring to love across a forbidden line. "If I were white," she once said, "I'd have a dozen scripts waiting on my doorstep." As the years went by, the spotlight dimmed. She sang in small clubs to pay the bills, her once bright career reduced to smoky rooms and fading applause. On September 8, 1965, Dorothy Dandridge was found dead in her Los Angeles apartment, only 42 years old. The coroner said it was an overdose, but to many, it felt more like heartbreak. Dorothy's death was both a tragedy and a warning. Hollywood can crown you one night and erase you the next. Yet, her legacy refused to die. When Halle Berry won her Oscar in 2002, she lifted the statue through tears and said, "This is for Dorothy Dandridge." Dorothy's brilliance didn't just open doors, it shattered them. She was the dream that told every black actress after her, "You belong here, even when the world says you don't." Lena Horne, the woman who refused to fade quietly. Long before the civil rights movement found its anthem, Lena Horne was already singing it through her life. Born on June 30th, 1917, in Brooklyn, New York, Lena began performing at just 16 at Harlem's legendary Cotton Club, a place where her grace, glowing beauty, and silky contralto voice could stop a room cold. She was magnetic, a young black woman who carried elegance like armor in a world that refused to see her as equal. By 1942, Lena made history as the first black woman to sign a long-term contract with MGM Studios, a breathtaking milestone at a time when Hollywood confined black actors to playing maids, nannies, or background smiles. But that contract came with invisible chains. MGM adored her sophistication, yet feared her skin. She was safe enough for white audiences, but too light for segregated Southern theaters. Her contract even allowed her scenes to be cut whenever her films played in the South. In Cabin in the Sky, 1943, her mesmerizing performance of Ain't It the Truth was removed from Southern releases because, as one theater owner said, white audiences don't need to see a black woman looking like a star. Lena didn't fight back with rage, she fought back with dignity. During World War II, when she performed for American troops and saw black soldiers forced to sit behind a rope barrier, she walked off stage mid-performance, saying firmly, "I'm not singing to a segregated audience." That act of defiance cost her dearly. She was blacklisted from military tours and labeled difficult. But Lena stood taller than fear. As she grew older, her voice deepened, not just musically but politically. She became a fierce advocate for the NAACP and stood proudly beside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the 1963 March on Washington. "They try to cut me out, underpaying me, and push me back," she said. "But I'm still here." And she was. Through her timeless hits like Stormy Weather and The Lady is a Tramp, Lena became not just an entertainer, but a symbol of endurance, elegance, and protest wrapped in melody. She earned 4 Grammy Awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award in 1989, and redefined what it meant to be a black woman in entertainment. When she passed away in 2010 at the age of 92, Lena Horne left behind more than music. She left a movement. She didn't just open doors for those who followed. She dismantled the very walls that once confined them. Her voice was velvet, her will was iron, and her legacy unshakable. Lena Horne didn't fade quietly into history. She made sure the world would remember the sound of a woman who refused to apologize for shining too brightly. Carol Channing. Carol Channing, the Broadway star who lived behind a secret. For nearly half a century, the world adored Carol Elaine Channing, the platinum blonde Broadway darling with a megawatt smile and voice like no one else. Born January 31st, 1921, in Seattle, she dazzled audiences in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Hello, Dolly. Her raspy charm, comedic brilliance, and radiant stage presence made her a legend, earning Tonys, a Golden Globe, and even an Oscar nomination. But behind the sequins and spotlight, Carol carried a truth she was forbidden to share. Her father, George Channing, was of African-American descent, a fact the family hid in an era when white sells tickets. In the 1930s and 40s, even a whisper of black ancestry could end a career. Her father warned her never to speak of it, and producers reinforced that fear. One even told her, "If anyone ever finds out, you're finished." So Carol played the role the world demanded, America's Golden Girl. Yet privately, the burden was heavy. Friends later recalled moments when she broke down in dressing rooms, terrified the truth might surface. The laughter that filled theaters hid a woman afraid of being unmasked. Then, in 2002, at 80 years old, Carol decided to stop hiding. In an interview with CNN and later on Larry King Live, she revealed the truth. "My father was a black man. I've spent my life afraid people would find out. But the truth should never be a burden." The revelation shocked Hollywood. Headlines called it her half-century secret. Some fans were stunned, others confused, but many, especially in the black community, embraced her honesty. Instead of tarnishing her legacy, the truth deepened it. Carol Channing became more than a performer. She became a symbol of courage, of how racism shaped and silenced even the brightest stars. She later admitted the pain of performing whiteness for so long and the regret of losing decades of authenticity. Still, she understood that if she had spoken sooner, the world might never have let her shine. Carol continued performing into her late 80s with the same sparkle that made her unforgettable. When she passed away in 2019 at age 97, she was finally celebrated for her full self. Not just the icon, but the woman who dared to tell the truth. Her story reminds us that beneath the glamour of Hollywood lies a price many paid for acceptance. Carol Channing's light never dimmed. It only grew brighter once she stepped out from the shadow of secrecy. Wentworth Miller, breaking free from the prison of identity. When Prison Break first hit screens in 2005, audiences around the world were hypnotized by Michael Scofield, the calm, razor-sharp engineer with eyes that seemed to hide 1,000 secrets. But behind that stare was Wentworth Earl Miller III, a man fighting not behind bars, but inside the walls of his own identity. Born June 2nd, 1972, in Chipping Norton, England, and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Miller grew up between two worlds. His father, a black man of Jamaican and African-American heritage, and his mother, a white woman of English, German, and Russian descent, created a complex mosaic of culture and expectation. Yet from childhood, he felt like he belonged nowhere. Too light to be black, too dark to be white. Classmates would ask, "What are you?" A question that, as he once said, felt like living life with a question mark on your face. He was brilliant, earning a degree in English literature from Princeton, but even an Ivy League diploma couldn't answer the question of belonging. When he turned to acting, Hollywood proved just as cruel. Casting directors told him he didn't fit the type. Not black enough for black roles, not white enough for mainstream ones. Years of rejection followed before Prison Break finally gave him his moment. The show became a global phenomenon, broadcast in 185 countries, earning him Golden Globe nominations and international fame. But even then, Hollywood tried to whitewash his story, literally. Magazines lightened his skin. Tabloids called him the mysterious Englishman, erasing the black heritage he quietly carried. For years, Miller stayed silent, afraid that honesty might cost him everything. Then, in 2007, he finally spoke the truth. "My father is of African descent. I've never denied that, but Hollywood isn't comfortable talking about it." His words shifted the conversation, but the battle inside him was far from over. Fame had come a price. The constant pressure to hide parts of himself pushed him into deep depression. In 2013, he revealed publicly that he had once attempted suicide, writing, "I was trying to kill myself because I didn't think I belonged anywhere." That same year, he came out as gay, a moment of vulnerability that transformed him from an actor into an advocate. Wentworth Miller began using his platform to speak for mental health awareness and LGBTQ+ rights. He no longer played the man escaping a prison. He was the man who broke free. His later years behind the camera, writing for The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, proved that impact isn't measured by screen time, but by truth told. Wentworth Miller's story isn't about scandal or fame. It's about survival, the courage to stand whole in a world that keeps trying to split you in half. In breaking from Hollywood's narrow vision of race and masculinity, he didn't just escape a prison. He rewrote what freedom really means. Hattie McDaniel, the triumph and the price of history. In 1940, inside the glittering Grand Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, history and heartbreak shared the same stage. Hattie McDaniel, born June 10, 1893, in Wichita, Kansas, became the first African-American ever to win an Academy Award, honored for her unforgettable role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind. Draped in a turquoise gown, she stood before Hollywood's elite and, through trembling tears, said, "I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race." The crowd rose in applause. But when the ceremony ended, Hattie was led not to the grand ballroom with her co-stars, but to a small table near the kitchen, the hotel's segregation policy still in full force. That night, she made history, and yet she wasn't allowed to sit among her peers. Her victory was both a crown and a curse. The daughter of former slaves, Hattie grew up in Denver, where her father, Henry McDaniel, had fought in the Civil War. She began in minstrel shows, writing and performing comic songs before breaking barriers as the first black woman to sing on American radio. But Hollywood had limits for black talent. Out of more than 300 films, she played maids, cooks, and nannies in most, the perfect servant, adored by white audiences but criticized by others for reinforcing stereotypes. When she won her Oscar, the Chicago Defender asked, "An Oscar for Hattie McDaniel? Pride or humiliation?" To that, she fired back with dignity. "I'd rather play a maid than be one." For Hattie, work meant survival and representation, even when the roles were small. Off-screen, she used her fame to quietly fight back. She gave to the NAACP, performed for segregated black troops during World War II, and later became the first black woman to star in a national radio sitcom, The Beulah Show. Even then, she faced censorship from both white sponsors and black organizations demanding she change her tone. In her final years, illness and financial hardship took their toll. On October 26, 1952, Hattie McDaniel died of breast cancer at just 59. Her last wish, to be buried in Hollywood Cemetery, was denied because of segregation. It wasn't until 1999 that a memorial was finally placed there in her honor. Hattie McDaniel's life was more than a Hollywood story. It was a mirror of America itself. A nation that could cheer a black woman's excellence while still forcing her to the margins. Yet her grace, courage, and defiance opened doors for every black actor who followed. She didn't just win an Oscar. She won the right to be seen, even when the world refused to look. Freddie Washington, the woman who refused to disappear. In the racially divided Hollywood of the 1930s, Freddie Washington was a quiet storm, elegant, intelligent, and unapologetically proud of who she was. Born Frederica Carolyn Washington on December 23, 1903, in Savannah, Georgia, she grew up in a world where light skin could be both a blessing and a curse. With her delicate features, she could have easily passed for white, a choice that promised fame, wealth, and safety in a color-obsessed industry. But Freddie chose truth over comfort. Raised in Harlem during the Renaissance, she stood among giants: Duke Ellington, Josephine Baker, Paul Robeson. She began as a dancer at the legendary Cotton Club, where white patrons applauded black performers they wouldn't dare sit beside. But Freddie wasn't anyone's fantasy. She was a woman of conviction. Her breakthrough came in 1934 with Imitation of Life, where she played Piola, a light-skinned black woman who rejects her heritage to live as white. The film became a cultural earthquake, earning an Academy Award nomination and exposing Hollywood's deepest contradictions. Yet life began to imitate art. Studio executives begged her to pass off-screen. One even promised, "If you pass for white, I'll make you a star in 3 years." Freddie's answer was simple and fierce. "I am a Negro, and I'm proud of it." That defiance cost her everything. After Imitation of Life, the same studios that praised her beauty now refused to cast her. Too light for black roles, too black for white ones. The doors closed, quietly, cruelly. But instead of breaking, Freddie built something greater. In 1937, she co-founded the Negro Actors Guild of America, fighting to protect and uplift black performers from exploitation. She became a journalist, writing sharp essays for the People's Voice, where she exposed Hollywood's hypocrisy and demanded that black lives be portrayed with dignity, not as caricatures. Even when Hollywood turned its back, Broadway didn't forget her. In 1939, she shined in Mamba's Daughters, proving that her artistry couldn't be silenced by prejudice. She kept mentoring young black artists through the 1950s, nurturing the very generation that would one day walk through doors she helped crack open. Freddie Washington passed away in 1994 at the age of 90, overlooked by the mainstream, but never by history. She never became Hollywood's darling, but she became something greater, its conscience. In an age when survival meant silence, Freddie chose integrity. Her story reminds us that true beauty isn't in blending in, it's in standing firm. Hollywood's golden lights may have faded, but her courage still burns. Because identity is not a flaw to hide. It's the power that rewrites history.